Database security. Microsoft SQL Server (MSSQL) server instances are a prime target for both legitimate users and potential attackers alike. A user with privileges to access MSSQL instances can wield significant power within these environments. First, if such a user operates with high-level permissions such as the system administrator SA role, they can execute commands not only within the confines of database but also on the MSSQL host itself. This elevated access, if compromised, opens the door to potentially devastating consequences, making safeguarding the SA role of utmost importance. Let us identify local instances of MSSQL servers that are available in our domain. We will be using the tool PowerUp-SQL to enumerate and exploit misconfigurations present in the SQL server and trust links. PowerUp-SQL is an open source PowerShell module and a collection of scripts designed for penetration testers and security professionals to assist in the discovery, privilege escalation, and post-exploitation phases of Microsoft SQL Server (MSSQL) environments. It is specifically tailored to help identify security vulnerabilities and weaknesses within MSSQL instances. Open up a new PowerShell window and load the PowerUp-SQL module from the Tools folder. You can also download it from the GitHub repository whose link is provided below. Once loaded, let's enumerate all the SQL servers present in the domain. For that, we will use the commandlet get-SQL instance domain. We can identify 6 SQL server instances in the domain. Let us try and check access to each of these with the current user credentials to get more information about these servers. For that, we can pipe the previous command and run the get-SQL server info command along with the verbose flag. We can see that only the SQL server running on the current machine, i.e. pentester, can be accessed using the credential of our user. On further observing, we can identify that this user is a sysadmin on the server, which is running as anti-service on the host. This means that this user can execute commands on the host as anti-service. This is not of much use to us, since 1. It is our own host, and 2. Anti-service account is a low privilege user. With the goal of gaining privileged access to the domain, it's essential to explore alternative avenues. One potent method involves exploiting MSSQL trust links. When one MSSQL instance trusts other, often through the use of database links or link servers, it can create a cascading effect. In such a scenario, if a user possesses privileges over a trusted database on one instance, they can exploit this trust relationship to execute queries on the other instance. This means that the user within the context of the trusted database can interact with remote data and perform operations on a separate MSSQL. What's particularly intriguing and concerning from a security perspective is the potential for chaining these trust relationships. As trust is propagated from one instance to other, the user's sphere of influence expands. With each link in the trust chain, they gain access to additional database and instances. If this chain of trust is extensive, it's conceivable that the user might stumble upon a misconfigured database along the way, where security measures could be improved. In such a case, the user could seize the opportunity to escalate their privileges further, potentially gaining the ability to execute arbitrary commands on the vulnerable database or even underlying host itself. Let us now identify MSSQL trust links in our domain and see if we can escalate our privileges using this. In order to do so, first let us run the commandlet get-SQL server link to identify any potential links. We can see that there is a direct link to the SQL server 10.0.2.7 which is running on our DC. We will now crawl all accessible linked server paths and enumerate SQL server version and the privileges that the links are configured with using the commandlet get-SQL server link crawl. Here we can see that the trust link to DC is running in context of sysadmin, which means command execution is possible on the MSSQL server running on the DC. Let us try by running command on the DC with the flag query and using the query execmaster xp_command shell along with the command who am I. We can see that the command execution is possible on the DC as seen in the custom query field. And the MSSQL server is running as NT authority system on the domain controller. This means that we have command execution on the DC along with system privileges. Let us try running the command hostname. We can see that this command also executes successfully, displaying the hostname of machines in which the servers are running. Let us now try running ipconfig. We can see that on larger outputs, the output gets truncated. In order to view the output, we can just select the custom query field from the output. Now we can see the entire output. Now let us enumerate the local administrators on the system with the command net local group administrators. This also executes successfully. In order to compromise the DC, we can add the user pentester in local administrator group of the DC. For that, let us execute the command net local group administrators pentester@insecure.local/add. We can see that the command has executed successfully in the DC. We can confirm this by listing the local admins to see our user pentester has been added to that group. Using this privilege, we can dump the ntds.dit hashes from the DC, which we will discuss in a later module. This intricate dance between user privileges, trust relationships, and potential security vulnerabilities highlights the critical need for vigilant database administration and security practices. Database administrators must carefully manage trust configurations, adhere to the principle of least privilege, and regularly audit and monitor trust relationships and user access to identify and rectify potentially weaknesses before they can be exploited. In the ever-evolving landscape of database security, proactive measures are essential to prevent unauthorized access and protect valuable data assets.